And good evening, everyone. John with the Missouri Liberty Report here. You all know that. You're all in here every week. I don't know why I have to tell you my name or anything. But anyway, got a great guest for you tonight, Charles Lewis. We're going to talk about gold and silver and the bullion bank that he is on the board with. We're going to get into that a little bit, and we're going to get into some other topics as well, just to keep things interesting. So give me just a uno momento, por favor, and I will start the recording, and we shall proceed.
In the restaurant of life, we're putting freedom back on the menu. It's the Missouri Liberty Report with John Williams, working with grassroots organizations and legislatures to make Missouri the freest state in the nation. Let freedom ring.
All right, folks, and we're back with another edition of fantastic, freedom-loving, liberty-loving folks and the Missouri Liberty Report. Good evening to all the folks in the live stream, and good evening to all of those of you who download or listen by radio. I appreciate each and every one of you. So tonight, I am joined by Charles Lewis. He's on the board of a bullion bank. We're gonna delve into gold and silver here in the state of Missouri, but then he's going to dispel the myth about electronically transferring gold and silver and being able to purchase things from an online retailer. So that topic plus many more. So let's bring him up. Charles, how are you this evening, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I am doing as well as I possibly can because I'm telling you, Charles, at some point I'm going to have to probably switch the format because by the end of the work week I'm tired, and I do this on Friday night. And at some point I'm like, you really got to switch your days to where you don't, Friday's the end of the week, it's hectic. Then I come home and try to do this, and I sound a little sluggish or silly at points. But hey. That's the way we roll. So, Charles, I guess to start off everything, so you can preface this conversation we're going to have with your knowledge. Talk about this bullion bank that you work for and your experience with it, and then we'll delve into all the questions and everything that go with gold and silver here in the state of Missouri.
Sure. Many years ago, I was very active in what we call community script. Community script is not any different than fiat money. It's paper, but it's unlike the federal note, the federal fiat money. The focus is to keep your money at home. The only way I can explain that is real quick as an example. Let's say you're in a small town and Aunt Maisie needs to build a deck, and she hires a local carpenter. He wants, say, maybe $1,500 for a deck, and so she gives the money to him, and he banks at the same bank, but he takes the money and puts it in the bank in order for him to buy things and to pay his own bills. Well, the minute that money gets deposited in a regular bank with fiat Federal Reserve notes, that bank can now take 9 times, or we often say 10 times that, roughly $15,000 in loans can be made from that deposit. So let's just say that's the case. It's a little less by a few hundred, but let's not split hairs. $15,000 is now sitting there ready and willing to be lended out to somebody in the community after this man finishes Aunt Maisie's or Aunt Dee's or whatever Auntie's deck is. She likes the work so well, she hires him to build a garage. Now, she doesn't have $15,000 to build the garage, so she goes to the bank, and guess what? They have $15,000 available for her to get loaned. So she signs up, gets $15,000, hands it to the carpenter. Guess where the carpenter goes? Goes to the local bank. And he now deposits $15,000 in there. Guess what? Now the bank can loan out $150,000. That's why we call it fractional reserve. But there's some criminal activity that makes that kind of shady anyway, and we can talk about that in, like the advanced course. But anyway, the bottom line is it kept the money that was available for work and hire and loans local. Now let's talk about the same kind of money and talk about how it leaves the community and causes problems. Let's say you go to a convenience store. There's tons of them, 7-Eleven, Casey's, so forth. Now, Casey's happens to be headquartered in Iowa. So the local Casey's run through hundreds of thousands of dollars a day. And they have a tremendous amount of deposits. And they usually deposit in a local bank in your community. But the difference is the money does not stay there. That bank is then required to transfer that to their home office bank, which is out of state. Now, if you get the picture, if the money had been left there, guess what was available to the community? Money for loans, money to build a garage, maybe even enough to build a commercial building, maybe enough for businesses to come and get loans that were affordable and easy to get. But if it leaves town and the banks that get it now are in Iowa, that's not going to happen, is it? So community script is like the loans that you have that circulate within your community, but they're still paper. There's nothing. How do you get them started? Well, you go into a community and say to the community businesses, hey, if we issue this Betty Crocker coupon, will you accept it for your goods and services? And if you get enough businesses ready to accept it, then it has value, doesn't it? Now, when it really gets good is when you can buy gas and groceries and medical care. Now that thing is beginning, that little Betty Crocker coupon is beginning to have a lot of value because of what it can get you. Now, community script, like an Ithaca Hour, HOUR, which is what they call their money, their community script in Iowa, and it doesn't look anything like a Federal Reserve note. Absolutely helped the community so much they built $1.5 million playground in the city for children with just Ithaca Hours with community script. But come later, we got to say, well, that's not real money. No, it's not. So what could make this community script much more valuable is to use real money. Now, remember, the Federal Reserve is not real money. It's Federal Reserve notes. When I go to buy somebody, let's say I go get a haircut and I give the barber a $20 bill, I just pass a note from my pocket to his hand, and what happens is it's not paid off. He didn't actually get paid off for that haircut. Somebody owes him something. They still owe him payment. Now, that's why they call it a Federal Reserve note, because it's not payment in full. It's not real money. It's fiat money. Now, the only way you can actually pay the barber off and be settled in your debt is for me to reach in my pocket, say, for example, might be a little pricey haircut, but I pull a silver dollar out. 1 ounce of pure 999 fine silver, very pure silver, minted from the Treasury. The minute I hand him that says $1 on it, you probably wouldn't be real smart not to take it since it's worth more than the haircut probably. But he gets paid off in what we call money, real money. So, what is money? Money in America can only be minted for the nation by the U.S. Treasury. And a dollar is defined not even in gold, but in silver as 1 ounce of pure 0.9995 silver. In other words, 1 ounce of pure silver from the Treasury is what we call a dollar. So that's kind of a basic start here, John, with how there is a difference between the mint and the Treasury's mint, minting, taking raw materials in and minting a coin and calling it our money. Now, there is a very, very vast difference between bullion, gold and silver bars, or coins that you buy that are not from the mint, and the mint. Now, the difference isn't very hard to understand, but there is a term for the money coming from the mint, and it's called the money of the realm, because it's what's accepted and legally written in our country's documents as what is acceptable money at that point federally, at the federal level. So it's supposed to be what money is. There's a lot of debate about a book that says the law that never was, written by a patriot many years ago. His name's Benson, that went to every state in the Union, 50 of them, and went twice actually, documenting whether or not that state voted in their records to start the Federal Reserve Act. And he found out there wasn't enough votes to actually pass it. But that's immaterial in a pragmatic way, John. It's not important to know whether it's lawful or not right now. The pragmatic answer and being practical about it is they enforce it. It's kind of like, do you want to stand on the tracks of a train coming down the track saying, is it a real train or not? You're going to get hit because it's real. Now, that doesn't mean it's lawful. It just means it's been made happen. Now, we've got this money system. And so what we've got now is an opportunity in the state of Missouri. Now, this is an incredible opportunity for actually the entire country to begin to do what happened in Utah first. And what am I talking about? Well, it's bringing back at the state level, under the authority of the Treasury and the government of the state, which they have the ability and the lawful right to do, and that's to make gold and silver legal tender. That's very important. And after we go through a few simple things, John, we can actually start talking about how that is and why it's, actually, why is it so important. And I'll just kind of get it started with this. Let's say that Missouri declares gold and silver shall be accepted as legal tender. Now, what does that mean? Well, we have to define it. So at the par value of what it's considered in U.S. dollars and Federal Reserve notes, it can be received in payment in debts that are all public and all private. Now, in the bill for Missouri, that means this. You can walk up to the state of Missouri, wherever you're at the courthouse, and slide gold or silver across the counter and pay your real estate taxes without any Federal Reserve notes, to buy and pay for your tags on your car, to pay your state taxes, to pay your real estate taxes, and now the federal government's fiat money system's out of the picture. Now, why is that so important? Because you're really dealing in real money, and there is no interest. In other words, when the Federal Reserve started, one of the things that fiat Federal Reserve notes did was cause us to owe the people that were printing this paper to pay them an interest on that. That's crazy because it takes about 7 cents to make anything, whether it's a $100 bill, a $50 bill, or a $1 bill. 7 cents in real value. That's not very much money. But when we, the government, we, the people, have it issued to us, we owe face value. So if we get a $100 bill, we owe the Federal Reserve $100 back plus the tax, plus interest. So that means that they're willing to give us this $100, and let's just say, to make it simple, it's 1% interest, which is remarkably low, but 1%. That would mean that we would have to give the Federal Reserve back $101. But guess what? How do you pay them back? You go up there and you say, well, here's your $100 back. You get this $100 bill and you hand it to them. And here's my chicken. And the Federal Reserve is going to say, what are you giving me a chicken for? And you say, well, it's because there is no other Federal Reserve notes available. There's none out there. This is it. This $100 bill was all you guys had in circulation. And the Federal Reserve is going to say, well, too bad. We want you to pay another $1 of Federal Reserve notes. And by the way, we'll be glad to lend you that money. Do you see the trap we got put into? When they want us to pay that paper back that does not exist, they're willing to print out more paper, which then causes what? You to owe more money back to them in money that's not printed. It's a vicious circle, but more than that, it's a corrupt scam. And that's what's taking the wealth of America. That's why you and I have seen less and less ability for one person to actually work long enough and with enough value as they're laboring to feed their family. Now, how do I know that? Hey, John, do you know about this thing called? Have you ever heard of the Tax Freedom Day? Have you ever heard of that?
I have, but you'll have to give me the gory details because I don't remember everything about it. But I have heard of it. Yes.
Yeah. Well, the Tax Freedom Day is just basically that thing, and all the news reporters talk about around May, June, that says, hey, today is the first day that you are actually working for yourself. In other words, with all the taxes that we owe the Federal Reserve and so forth, it takes that much time before we get to work for ourselves because that's how much money we owe in taxes. And everybody that you buy from has to pay taxes too. So you're paying taxes on their taxes, and that compounds everybody's expense because we're having to pay that extra one. And imagine doubling that to another 2%. Now, these little percentages is what we call the prime rate. That's what you can get the money for. Now, in the meantime, they've raised it. That's what caused all the loans on homes to go up, nearly double right now what they were. But here's the deal. Many years ago, in the 1200s, get this, a man that didn't have all the conveniences we had, supposedly, it sounds like he's just barely getting by. A man in the 1200s had large family. It only took him 7 months of labor to feed his family and take care of his debts or have a living at home and a place to be. 7 months was all it took for him, okay? Well, the barons of the world, and I mean by that the banker barons of the world, they knew there was this 5 months that he had not no need to work. So guess what they did? They taxed us, and they began to take 1 month away, then 2 months away, and then three, and then so we started working 1 month for taxes, and then pretty soon it grew to two, and then pretty soon that last day they paid was called Tax Freedom Day, and that is always advertised by all the media, and they say today's Tax Freedom Day, and it used to be in May, because remember, 5 months of that year you don't have to work to actually feed yourself back in the 1200s. But once you pass Tax Freedom Day, and now you're having to work beyond the day that you, and now you're getting into the 7 months of your labor, and it takes some of that out of your pocket. Guess what we have to do? Mama's got to go to work, daddy's got to go to work, or dad's got to get a second job, and so forth. So somebody's got to come up with some money somewhere, because we've now gone past the level of taxation that allows us to be like they did in the 1200s. That's incredible. That's where our wealth is, why our wealth is leaving us. Why, John, haven't most of us now in a country over 200 years old been able to give their family members, their sons and their daughters, free property and help them be in a debt-free home? Because of this, because the banking system wouldn't let them. Now that's why Andrew Jackson said, I killed the bank and I'm proud of it, because he didn't want wealth stolen from the people. So that brings us to 1900, and I'm bringing that up before we get into the Federal Reserve Act and that, because in 1900, John, the average size of a home in Missouri, the average size of the home, John, was 10 rooms, and that did not count the bathroom. I mean the closet, sorry. It included the bathroom, but it did not include, the storage closet or the attic or the basement. It had to be a dining room, a bedroom, a living room, a family room, a bathroom, a kitchen, that kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe most people listening are real wealthy, but I don't know very many homes that have 10 rooms anymore. Now, I was fortunate to have grown up in a farmhouse that was built in the 1800s. And, John, it had 10 rooms. It was a farmhouse. I just thought it was an old house. Little did I know. I learned quite a bit later after I got out on my own. I was living in something pretty big.
Well,
but that's changed.
Well, and to add to that, there's something quirky that I saw one time. I used to do pest control work. I don't remember the name of the town. It's in between the way from Lynn to Jeff City. But anyway, it's in this town, and I noticed that all the houses were narrow, but they were long. From front to back, they were long, but width-wise, they were narrow. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. Why are they this way? But I just kind of put it out of my mind. I had work to do. As I'm doing my job, the owner of the house goes, "Hey, did you notice how all the homes are built here?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "When this town was being built," she goes, "at that time, you were taxed on the width of your lot only, not by the actual square footage, but you were only taxed by the width of the lot." So she's like, everybody built their houses narrow, and they went way back with them. And I was like, I had no idea, never heard of it, but I thought, well, that shows the ingenuity of people to get around when they can the taxation of the barons, or your cities or counties or states or whatever. Okay, you're going to tax us on the width. I'll just build a narrow, long house, and boom.
Right, the frontage on the frontage to the road.
Yeah.
The width of the frontage on the road goes by foot, and voila, that's your rate. It's crazy, isn't it?
It is.
And how it's time for us, John, to take back control of our wealth.
Sure.
That's where we're at.
Absolutely. And it's funny because over the past several weeks, I there's a couple gentlemen at work that I talk to a lot. We get into the subject of money an awful lot. And it's funny because one guy's really, really, really into crypto. He's super into crypto. He's telling me and the other guy, man, you guys got into crypto. You got to get into crypto. And I told him, because he thinks that crypto is just, there's no way for them to get control of it. But he talks about all these other subjects where government has meddled and messed it up. And I said, how can we have all these discussions and you don't think that they have plans to take out a lot of the crypto market? You can't say they can't do it, because they absolutely could if people are foolish enough to fall into the pit traps that they lay out. If they're not smart enough and they're not educating themselves enough and they go for the fear porn over crypto, they actually could, really wreak havoc in the crypto market. Now, here's something that gets brought up a lot on my show in the chat. Because people that talk about gold and silver, they talk about the paper side and the Federal Reserve tinkering with the value, devaluing gold and silver through paper. And it's always a concern to them that if we pass this here in Missouri, that the actual values or whatever could get screwy, and the feds could manipulate it and then cause devaluation of gold and silver. What do you have to say about something like that? Because I can't answer this. I'm not knowledgeable enough on it. But every time I talk gold and silver, this always comes up. What do you have to say about something like that?
It's really easy to answer. What kind of system do we have our country based on? It's demand and supply. I don't care if it's a house, a horse, a chicken, an ounce of gold, an ounce of silver. How much it's worth is what you can get for it and what the demand for it will get you. In other words, if I can get 2 haircuts for 1 ounce of silver, that's what it's worth. It's not worth $2. We have been brainwashed into thinking in terms of fiat U.S. Federal Reserve note value. We don't think of what gold and silver has given us over thousands of years and what it was worth. And I'll get a little bit into it there, but I just want to kind of touch on that crypto thing. Let me put it this way. There's going to be this ought to shake people up a little bit, John. Crypto is not money, not by the Constitution. Federal Reserve notes aren't money either. But now they're going to say, oh, it's currency. No, crypto is not currency either. It is not currency, folks. It is an investment asset, because some of them are lower, some of them are worth stuff, some of them are gone broke, some of them are more valuable. It's an asset. It's a tradable asset, and you invest in it. Tell me the last time that Martha can just reach in her pocket and go down to the store and get milk using crypto. Do you see where I'm going? Let me ask you another question. How many houses, John, would you buy that didn't have how many houses in your whole county do you think would be sold if they said, nope, can't have electricity?
Yeah.
How much would that house be worth?
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot, right? They don't want a house without electricity. Well, guess what? Crypto needs.
Yeah.
It's an investment. It will go away and disappear without it. So oh no, there's value. I didn't say there wasn't value. But just like any business, John, that makes big airplanes that bomb people, that are humongous, and you can go up there and bang on them, which is physical, those companies go up and down in value, right? Some go broke, some don't. Some make billions, some don't make it. Car industry, same thing. Some made it, some didn't. And that was physical things. Same with crypto. But crypto is not a digital currency. A digital currency is not crypto. We must define these things now before it gets out of hand. Crypto is anonymous. It is you don't have to have an ID. You don't have to recognize that person. It does not require a person's ID. It's kind of like the old-fashioned Swiss bank account. When you had a bank account number and you wrote it down, you better write that down 500 times somewhere and hide it, because you won't get your money if you don't have that account number, because it hasn't anything to do with who you are. It has everything to do with autonomy and anonymous and private. But that's not what digital currency that they're going to be coming out is going to be, because it has backdoors. It IDs you. It controls you. They will know. And so if you have a crypto that has a backdoor, it is no longer anonymous, and we cannot and don't allow that to be defined as crypto, which we can get into with the FTX because it had a backdoor. So how many people out there that buy a Bitcoin have read the code and know for sure themselves there's no backdoor? I bet you it'd be less than 1%, John. Less than one. Oh, I read the papers. I didn't say the white papers on Bitcoin. I mean the code to let you know there's a lock on the door. Whereas you go up to a bank, you can see a lock. Now let's move forward into this thing that we are talking about. You said, well, gosh, if they have gold and silver, blah, 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 how they spend it and all that sort of thing. Like I said before, it is by definition in the Constitution. Let's just talk silver, because we can talk silver simple because it is defined as money. But what if, John, you could take silver and put it into an institution? And I like to say a bank, John, because banks actually have money in them. When we were settling this country and people left the West Coast, they would sell everything, their home, go get a covered wagon, and they would be carrying gold and silver. And when they got out in the Midwest, they would take the gold and buy land. Land used to be, gold used to be called portable land. And then they would use their silver. Now they're out in the field harvesting and planting. They don't have time to stay at their house and guard their silver. So they hired people to do that, and they called it a bank. Now, there were good banks, there were bad banks, there were just reputation levels, right? Just like anything else. And everybody says, well, you won't know that it's safe unless it's in your pocket. Have you ever been robbed? I mean, come on. We're not 100% secure, even if we're guarding it. In fact, I'm going to be telling you how secure it is at UPMA. But anyway, here's the deal. What if you could take your gold and silver asset and put it into a vault, and then have that institution give you an ATM card to go get gas and groceries and anything else you need? I mean, have we now you can buy on Amazon, right? Do you see where I'm going? We have just caused that gold and silver to be what we call more spendable. Sometimes you might say, well, I don't want to spend a whole dollar. Well, we can cut that silver dollar in half with an ATM card. We call that being fungible. We can strip it into little bitty pieces and peel it off and pay half of a silver dollar for a haircut, because that's probably what it's really worth, and spend the other half somewhere else, because we're using blockchain technology to protect it and move it. By the way, the ATM service standards are this. And by the way, John, Walmart did us a big favor many years ago, and I will state right now, I do not shop Walmart. I haven't been there in 20 years. But they did do us a favor. They started putting ATM cards in their lobby. And the banks went, wait a minute, you can't do that. That's a banking thing. That's a service at the bank, you can't do that. Well, guess what? It ended up at the Supreme Court. Walmart won. A lot of people say, well, it's because they had a lot of money and they bought them off. No, Walmart won because ATM service centers and machines that have Walmart's money in there have nothing to do with a bank. They're not banking anything. They stick their own paper money in it and say, here, we'll give you a little bit of cash if that's what you want, and you're going to pay us $1. So that ATM service law that was ruled on, you don't have to be a bank to have an ATM service, exploded the ATM service community. And the world's largest ATM company is TrueLink. Anywhere Visa is allowed, they cut a deal with Visa, and wherever Visa is allowed, they will let that card be honored. Now you have to pay Visa and TrueLink, and everybody goes, well, I don't want to have to pay $2. Well, if you don't want to, that's fine. There is some things, though, that we have with our ATM cards that you will never see anybody else have. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that. Maybe Soros and all those guys. I doubt seriously even carry a card, but you can do $20,000 a day on our ATM cards. A day. So that makes it possible for you to run a business and actually put your earnings in real money in a vault, protected with 21 steps of security between the front door of that institution and the vault door. 21 steps. It actually will set in a vault. And get this, John, this isn't one of those banks that won't tell you what's going on, like the Federal Reserve. Oh, we tried to get, Von Paul tried to get a bill passed, audit it, and it's never been audited. You can, if you're a member at UPMA, that's United Precious Metals Association is the name of this constitutional bank. You as a member can make an appointment and go look and bring, let's say you're a business, John, and you can bring your entire accounting team with you after you make an appointment, and you can go look at the books. You can see what the books say. You can look at the gold and silver in the vault. You can actually stand there and look at your portion of gold or silver, whatever you put in the vault, and they'll show it to you because it's there. And it gets audited on a regular basis. And see, because we're run by members and this thing is owned by the members, members have a right to see the books. And that's anybody that puts money in and becomes a member of UPMA. And by the way, if you set up an account at UPMA, it's free. By the way, there's many, many kinds of ways that we can move money into your account, and you don't have to have gold or silver yourself. You can just send Federal Reserve notes, send a cash or a check or a wire, and bank transfers and all those kind of things are all available. And you send it to UPMA, and they will put whatever that is equal to that day that they get it in silver or gold or both, whatever you choose, on the shelf. Now, there's a one-time fee for the ATM card, and it was $25, but I think, John, it's cheaper now. It's kind of one of those weird things I tell you. They go, no way, it can't be cheaper. Yeah, it's cheaper. We did a service upgrade and security feature, and since we're doing so much, apparently we got a deal, and so we even make them available. And that's a one-time fee. And just like any other ATM card, John, or when you go to an ATM service center, there's a fee. Now, if you're shopping on Amazon, it's not going to be like that. There's no ATM fees for that. Am I going too fast, John?
No, it's cool. I'm just sitting back absorbing everything because this is a subject. I mean, again, we have this gold and silver bill that's been filed, and I am not up to snuff on everything. So we had the guy, we had Senator Igo on last week who filed the bill, and then thanks to Patrick, he got you and I lined up for this. And,
yes.
I told him, I was like, I may need some help because I am not well-versed in gold and silver. So this is great. You talk now. I will tell you in about a little over or a little under 17 minutes. If you're in the middle of something, I may have to cut you off, or I'll give you a minute warning because I do have to cut for one radio station. So I have to just hit the stop record button and I hit record again, and I can continue on, just in case we really get going here. But I do have a question for you though, because
Sure.
I had some questions lined up here. But good God, man, do you have some kind of mental powers because you checked off like 4 or 5 of my questions with your opening statements, which is great. Don't get me wrong, that's awesome. But why? Let me ask you your opinion on something. Why does the Fed
Yeah.
discourage people from owning gold and silver? Is it just because they don't want them to figure out how sovereign they can be as an individual when they're not dependent on fiat currency? Is that it? Or is there multiple reasons why the Feds discourage people from owning gold and silver?
Because two people, usually when you buy a house, John, you own it. Let's say you pay cash, okay, just pretend for a minute. When the Federal Reserve issues currency, you do not own it, and they don't want you to own it. You don't own that. In fact, if you took even just a one little dollar bill paper and you set it on fire, did you know you just committed a felon?
Well,
That's because you don't own it. You do not own Federal Reserve notes. They allow you to use them. Now, I will make this public right now. They did pass this thing called the Federal Reserve Act, probably illegally, but they, through color of law, have put it in place. And this thing called the Federal Reserve note is kind of a ghosty little thing, but the bottom line is that's all they were authorized in the act to make, was to issue Federal Reserve notes. We're missing something here as we move forward. That act, John, did not authorize them to issue a digital dollar. Everybody's presumed to think, and they just let that slide by when they talk, as if the Federal Reserve can do whatever they want and they can issue this thing called the central bank digital currency, which is the digital money. No, they can't, because that's not in the Federal Reserve Act. They can't. They're not allowed to. But that's just a side note. So why is it they don't want you and I to own gold and silver? Because they can't control us. Bottom line, they're using this currency called the Federal Reserve note in the past to control us. Not just us, but politics is under the control of this money system, and nations are controlled. You remember the famous statement, right? I don't care who, makes the laws, as long as I control the money, I can control them, right? That's a paraphrase.
Yeah,
And
I know what you're talking about,
cartels. Though. Right. So what's the deal with this new law? Number one, there was a current law in Missouri says that the sale of gold and silver, whether it be bullion, investment coins, or which would be like silver minted from the Treasury, they have been tax exempt. They don't have sales tax with them. And there's already an existing law that says capital gain on those. In other words, if you have it sitting there and you go exchange it for U.S. Federal Reserve notes, the gain that you made, if you bought it for $300 and you sold it for $1,000, is not taxable. At least in Missouri, you'll still pay Federal Reserve notes on tax gained federally to the IRS. So, at least the tax in the Missouri level. But how do you get around paying then the gain from something like that? Let's say, John, you had put in a lot of coins at $400, which isn't that all long ago. I mean, maybe 2 decades. You were buying all these coins at $400, and you just did it because you were going to retire. And as we're talking right now, do you know what gold and silver is running Do you have any idea?
No, I haven't checked
Let me check.
the reports lately to see the valuation per ounce. I haven't checked that in a little while.
Well, silver at spot, and I'm going to explain what spot is. You cannot buy, let's talk about it now before we get into the value of it.
Sure.
The spot price of gold and the spot price of silver is not a number that you can buy any of that gold and silver at. You cannot buy it for that. Here's how the Act, the Federal Reserve, and by the way, the Treasury, there is a law in the books that says the Treasury must mint coins at however much the country demands, period. If there's a demand for it, they must mint literally all they need. And they have to pay the mining companies whatever they ask. And it doesn't make any difference what they ask, but they've got to buy it at whatever they're asking. Now, of course, there's several mining companies, and they will go in there and they'd say, well, I'll sell mine a little cheaper. So there's our good old, competition in play. Supply and demand and competition keeps prices down. And so this guy over here sells it for cheaper. And so that's why we should be bidding out who wants to sell to the mint their gold and silver. And so what happens, whatever it costs them to buy that precious metal, whether it's gold or silver, and then go in and make it, melt it and press it and stamp it and pack it and send it out the door. There's all kinds of labor and expense. The Treasury has the right to charge that cost to us. Now, that's the spot price. But you can't get it to that, and the Federal Reserve does not sell directly to the people. So they have dealers, let's just call them dealers right now. And they're not very many, but these dealers, some of them, they have clients like retirement funds, and some are really involved in selling directly to the public. But these dealers know their customers. They know what they're probably willing to pay for whatever they've got, and they will go up to the Fed and bid on it or get this a certain amount of gold and silver from the not the Fed, from the Treasury, and buy from the Treasury what they think they can sell. They will turn around then and raise the price and make a markup on it of whatever they think they can get by with. Now, you might go, whoa, man, that means it's going to go up. No, that means there's going to be somebody else over here and across the street in a different dealer that it says, I know he's selling it for 17, I'm going to sell it for 16. So competition comes in, and so supply and demand and competition sets that price and the value against whatever we call the Federal Reserve note. What the public's going to be paying is Federal Reserve notes for it. Does that kind of set up now how we get the gold and silver into circulation? From the mint, from the mines to the mint, to the dealers, to the public, and the public is the dealers. Now, we take the spot price generally. When we talk about a silver eagle, one silver eagle, you can take that price of that spot price times 1.75 to 1.80 right now, and you're going to be close to what they're selling a silver eagle for. Now, bullion dealers don't care about that. They just want raw material. You better invest in this bulky old bullion bar, and you want 10 ounces of bullion. I can get it cheaper than you can get a mint. Well, here's the difference. There's a very important difference, John. When you buy bullion, you're subject to capital gain tax. When you buy minted coin at the Treasury, the coin of the realm, whether it's pure silver or gold, even the federal government cannot charge you capital gain on it. Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because they can't recognize the value of this thing on there that says $1. That's all they can say. That's $1. It says what it's worth right there. And let me give you an example. Let's say you own. Let's pretend like silver dollars were worth $40 right now, and you could go down to the coin shop and spend $40 and get it from a dealer. There's several bullion dealers, silver coin dealers, and so forth. And you spend $40 and you get you a silver coin. Well, you file your taxes, and the IRS says you owe us $40. And you go, well, I think I'll just take my silver dollar down there and go pay it. You're going to slide that silver dollar across the counter, and you're going to say, here's my payment, $40 worth right here of silver. The Federal Reserve says, that's not going to pay your bill. We'll take $1 for it. John, why is it they'll take only $1? They cannot recognize the value of the metal, can they? They won't accept that back. Remember, when they make money, when you pay them back, you have to play with their money and give them like. You have to pay their stuff back. They don't take chickens or houses or even gold and silver. So all they will recognize is what it says from the Treasury. It says $1, and they'll say, now you owe me $39 more. So there's a big difference when you get into the coin of the realm, because capital gain does not exist. They can't do that. That frees you and I from what, John?
It frees us from the old slave money system. I mean, honestly, that's what it does for me.
How about taxes?
Yeah,
How
taxes.
about taxes?
Slave
right.
system.
Now, so let's get to what. So let's go. Yeah. So what is a gold coin worth, and what's a silver dollar worth? No, a silver dollar is not worth $40. Here's what it's worth, and it's been worth this for a couple thousand years. You can eat a good meal with a silver dollar. Think you could meet a pretty decent meal for $35, $40, John?
Oh, I would imagine that I could go to one of my favorite places and eat like a king with $40.
Right.
Because I'm a simple man.
Okay.
I like hamburgers, so I could go to Red Robin and say, just fill the table, and they'll be like I got this.
There you go.
Bam, just lay it down.
You're gonna eat pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes, you can eat a meal. You're not gonna buy a house. You can't get a suit of clothes. But let's talk about that. What's a silver coin made of 1 ounce gold going to get you? Well, today it's pretty pricey. It's going to be spot plus. So let's just call it, round it off to $2,000. In Christ's day, and even today, that much will get you something in clothing. It'll get you a suit of clothes, a nice belt, maybe even a good tie, and a pair of shoes. Now, I don't know that we could buy a Trump suit. I mean, it is like, who knows how much it costs, right? But I mean, hey, we could still get a decent suit of clothes, a pair of shoes, boot, and a tie, maybe even a shirt, for a couple grand. Man, we could really deck ourselves out. But that's how you rate. That's what is called. That's how you recognize the value of something. It's not whether it goes up and down, because the up and down price in Federal Reserve notes has to do with the value of the paper. The gold is a commodity that has been stable for 2,000 years and buys the same that it did back then. In Christ's day, you can buy a meal, you get a suit of clothes. Today, you can get a suit of clothes and buy a meal. Isn't that amazing?
That's pretty awesome. I mean, when you think about it, think about how much the world has changed in 2,000 years. How just technology and everything, how much easier than the average person's life is because of technology, and how, the way we build homes and the way we heat and cool our home. I mean, all these amenities that we have now. But you take this precious metal, and fundamentally, it has stayed the same throughout those 2,000 years. And what's great about it is, unlike fiat currency, if you, let's say you went out to go buy a meal, you lay down one coin, so one nice silver coin, blap, and they're like, oh, well, we'll give you the whole column A of the menu. And you're like, yeah, go ahead and do that. I will just fatten myself up real nice, sitting at this table with one freaking coin. That's just, I've never thought about it that way, Charles, and it is a little, it's mind blowing, but it's mind blowing in a good way because, again, I know that, and I'm just going to talk here for about another minute and a half, Charles, and then I'll cut and we'll continue on with our conversation. That way, I have to interrupt you and cut you off for one set of audience members. But anyway, it's when I talk to people about this at work, I say, hey, we got a gold and silver bill coming, and they just kind of, huh? And I'm like, making it money, making it actual money. If a retailer chooses to take it, they can do so. And I said, think about that, man. It seems so cool to me. I guess I'm a nerd or something. I don't know. And it just, knowing that I'm not carrying around basically worthless pieces of paper in my hand that, like you said, you don't own. They just so nicely let you carry them around in your pocket. Carrying something around with you that actually has value, stable value for thousands of years, is way cooler to me. I mean, I don't know. I'm just kind of goofy and nerdy like that. Some old things like that really fascinate the heck out of me. So I'm like, woo. But anyway, for those of you in the KEYK audience, thanks so much for joining me this week for this edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Next week, I will be joined by Michelle Latham, and we're going to talk about her fight to get the WEF out of the state of Missouri. Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week. All right, moving on, Charles. I just wanted to fill up a little time there. I want to go through all my questions here and see if there's anything. Sure. Oh, okay. So, you said basically you could write a check, cash, wire, set up an account there, and
move
get
money in.
Put money in and get
move
so
Federal
much.
Reserve notes.
Okay, so
Go ahead.
It seems pretty easy. I mean, I think this is this is great that it's that easy to invest your money in something that actually holds its value, because when we were talking about Bitcoin earlier and Bitcoin took a big nosedive and people, a couple guys were like, oh, Bitcoin took a big nosedive. And I was like, yeah, because it's still traded in fiat currency. That's the only thing you can trade Bitcoin for is fiat currency. Right.
Right.
Of course, when the market took a dump, all these companies that were investing in things like Bitcoin then took their money out of it and went and started investing in tangible assets like land and other things because they hold their value. And I was trying to get across this, guys, like, yeah, when the market's up and a lot of people have invested in it, it's great. But when the market takes a dump and you want to, at some point you're like, oh, man, if you're hurting in this recession, you're like, oh, I want to sell my Bitcoin to get the money. Well, now it was up at $60,000 and now it's down to $15,000. You just literally lost $45,000 of value at the time you need it the most, which I remember in 2008 when the housing market crashed. And now I could be wrong on my numbers, and I know you'll correct me because you know this way better than I do. But I remember seeing that silver was an average, the price they were showing was like 14 or 15 bucks, but in '08 it jumped to 40. And then gold spiked. And I was telling my wife, I was like, this is why I see some people investing in gold and silver, because in that instance, they just made money. They literally made money and did nothing wrong. They didn't do anything shady. They just decided to put their fiat currency and invest it into something that's tangible and is stable.
Now, let me ask you a question about tangible assets like land. It's not something you can quickly buy. It takes a process, and there's limited time frames sometimes to get good deals, or it slips out of your hands. And that's okay. But what's neat is when we say gold is portable land. you can get that gold, and it will, it will have that kind of behavior. It will behave like land because it's an asset. You're holding something of value. And that's why when they moved across the country and settled this nation, they'd cash in, get gold, and they'd come over maybe to Ohio Valley or Missouri and buy farms. They'd pay that gold down. Now, everyday transactions weren't gold. You know the cowboy shows, right, where they go up to the bar and throw a silver dollar down, or they go up to the hotel and throw a. When they go to the hotel, they'd actually go into the hotel and sit down and ask for dinner, and they'd throw down a silver dollar. So that's what we did back then. Now, let me ask you this. You know that when you file your taxes, you have to use something to file it. Do you know what it is?
Well, you got to use your W-2s or whatever. And anything else beyond that,
Social Security. You have to have your Social Security
sure.
number. Right?
Okay, yeah.
So when you go to the bank at, let's say, one of the big banks and open up an account, what do you have to put on there?
Yeah, Social Security number.
Well, guess what? On a constitutional bank, you don't put your Social Security. There's no Social Security recorded at UPMA.
Ah. Very, very nice. Now,
if you
go ahead.
So now, let's say
you go ahead, but I got some questions from the live stream viewers, so go ahead.
Oh yeah, go for it. I want you to. Yeah, I can answer the question. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I've got several here, and I've been a bad host and haven't been. I've been so soaking up everything you said. I'm not paying close attention to the chat. Okay, so here's an interesting question. Okay, one guy's asking, the main thing he wanted to know is, to buy property costing, let's say, $200,000 in fiat, how does that convert to this system of gold and silver? Could he
Absolutely. Great question. It's a perfectly legitimate, maybe core question. It's a good question. Let's just call gold worth $2,000 fiat right now, okay? So $200,000 would be 100 gold coins, okay? Now, let's pretend like you've got those 200. Let's do two steps. Let's do pretend like you have 200 gold coins, and they're sitting at UPMA's vault. What happens is you contact UPMA and say, I need my 200 coins converted. And we have a trust department, John, and we take our members' coins and we liquidate them into Federal Reserve notes, and we send them a wire transfer or whatever they want, okay? And we put it in their hands or to wherever they want it to go to make a payment to buy the house. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because it's not John converting the money into Federal Reserve notes. All he knows is he spent 200 coins to buy that house. Now, let me say it a different way. Let's say John has 200 coins, and I am a member also of UPMA, and I want to sell mine for 200, and he likes it. He gets my email, logs into his back, just like any other bank where you can go into your account and check your balance and all that, remember?
Yeah.
We have the same thing. We do the same. You can log in with your security code and everything, and then it says, do you want to make a transfer, a deposit, and so forth. You click what you want. Let's just say it's a transfer. Now, this happens to be to somebody outside or inside. Well, it's to another member. So I have already given him my email, which is connected to my vault bank account there, my account at UPMA. And so now we're going to get connected. All he has to do is to put in my email, say transfer, click the button, 200 coins goes over and are put on hold to be in my account. Now, I look at that, I will receive notice But generally speaking, it's actually still there. But guess what? This transaction never made it into any of the banking services. It hasn't gone into the transfer systems for checking. None of that. None of the clearinghouses saw it. You know, a clearinghouse is what transfers checks into your bank account by the value of it. They transfer the money, the Federal Reserve notes. Well, it's not even in the Federal Reserve system. All that happened to get this done was $200,000. Now, how's that going to help me? Well, you know, I can still spend $20,000 a day on an ATM card. I don't think I'm going to do too bad, right? Do you see what I just did?
Yeah.
I sold my house. I go down and if I want to, we cut a deal and take a little bit out of that 200 for maybe some, you know, filing fees and so forth, and we both work together to figure out who wants to pay for what, and we get all that closing done and paid for, and voila, get the inspections and the whole bit. We pay for them ourselves. It's over. Isn't this incredible?
It is pretty friggin' awesome. I'm not gonna lie. Okay, I have a question of my own before I get into some others in the live stream. Is there? Let's say I wanted to open an account at that bank. Is there a minimum amount that they want to open an account?
Yeah. The minimum amount's $0.
Oh, okay. That's pretty easy. I like that. Yeah, you can just open. Like, what's the minimum?
Generally speaking, most people I think are plopping down $40. We were playing with a minimum amount, and we don't want to say you're not there for everybody. You know, it's not like that. But no, you can literally do all the signing up online. Now, I'm going to tell you something that we put in place that's not been. Let me back up and tell you a little bit about me and tell you why this is new. John, I've been on the board of UPMA. I'm starting my 10th year. Believe it or not, UPMA has been over a decade in existence. So I've been on the board, but I don't get paid. Okay, we don't get paid. I'm chairman of the Emergency and Preparedness Committee, which was established in the last round of assignments to chairman 3 years ago. So I served as chair of that, and we instituted many contingency plans for both physical continuity and continuity of service to the members. For example, if we were to have a total financial collapse, how are the employees going to work when they don't have money? So we cut a deal with our employees. If you will work for us and during a collapse, we'll pay you in gold and silver. Every one of them said yes. So we have every provision. We have backup systems. We have power system backs up. We have not redundancy. We don't have duplicate backup. We have tridundancy of systems and power systems. Our building is earthquake proof. In fact, when the inspectors came to inspect it, we didn't have to have this done, but we had professionals that go out and inspect regular banks. And this man that came, he was at it for 20 years, and he came out of there and he said, there's two things I need to check, but they're electrical, so I just need to see your specifications. He looked at the specifications and he said, well, that answers that. And he turned around and he said, you know, usually when I'm inspecting banks, there's a dozen to 24 things that have to be fixed before they're allowed to open. And you're the first bank in the nation that I've ever inspected that never needed anything done. And so because of that, we don't just have FDIC. We don't do FDIC. And by the way, FDIC only covers your money, folks. if the loss is due to inflation, not because of bank failure. Now, they're going to cover the bank failure because if they don't, their little game's going to be up and it'll look like they're going broke and the Federal Reserve's bad and FDIC's not doing what they think they're supposed to, that kind of thing. But it's legally only obligated to pay for loss due to inflation. But in the meantime, we didn't cover that. Ours is covered for anything 100% by Lloyd's of London. In fact, I had and I won't mention what attorney it is, but he does work for a fella that many people might know. He's kind of a good guy. He has a lot of money, and he's I'll just say it. It's Warren Buffett. Okay. Well, he found out about us, and he gave us a proctology exam, John. He says, I can't believe this. I just cannot believe this. He says, I do legal work for insurance companies, for banks. He says, you've got insurance that I can't even get for anybody anymore. It's so good. He says, you're covered. Really good. Lloyd's of London. Where was I going? I got lost. I'm sorry, John.
Oh, well, while you're thinking about that, maybe you can answer another question, because this is a legitimate question here, and I passed it up. So, okay, when you said, you could spend $20,000 a day with the ATM card, somebody's asking about the Fed's $9,999 reporting threshold. I thought that was on deposits. Maybe that's on spending too. Do you know anything about this? I mean, as far as a threshold where the feds go, whoa, 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 whoa.
Well, they have these withdrawal reports and deposits mostly. They're interested in tracking deposits, and so they want a certain amount to be reported. We don't report anything. We don't report any activity. We're not in the Fed system. We're outside of that. It's like you and I are trading hay bales. I don't have to report. I took 10 hay bales from you yesterday, and the next day you gave me 12 back. I don't have to do that. None of us do, because we're not talking about Federal Reserve now. So no, we don't report anything like that. Now there is something when you get a ATM card. Since the ATM card has a contract with Visa, they want to track the identity of that card. So there'll be a little bit more ID there, okay? Not necessarily codes or anything sneaky. They're still not tracking you. I mean, it's not like you're having to report anything. If it was, if we had tracking and all those rules on us, we couldn't offer $20,000 a day.
Okay, fair enough. I like that.
Now, let me tell you this too.
Sure.
There are two types of accounts at UPMA.
Okay.
A personal account and a merchant account. Now, what's the difference? There's no difference except for one thing. On a personal account, nobody knows you've got it. Only you and UPMA. Not anybody else. Not even your wife. Well, if she wants in, she better have your little code. That's the only way, okay? But in a merchant account, the merchants want to be known. So they're made known to all the members that, hey, Charles Lewis's clinic takes money from you guys. I use UPMA money. I use gold and silver. I'll take gold and silver via UPMA. And that's a merchant account. But it still functions exactly the same. Now, one neat thing I wanted to tell you that we implemented, that's where I was going before. We made a little enticement finally, because we got big enough. We were too small to do this before, where you can earn a little referral. So I can give you a referral code, John, and I can make a little bit. Now, it's going to cover my little fees and my card costs and everything. It's not going to make you a living. In fact, the most you can earn is $1,000 a year, okay? So it's just something to help people say, well, I don't have to pay that. Well, if you start referring people, it's kind of like helping people sign up for some of these platforms on computers like Mega or P Cloud, or where you can get more space if you refer people. That's kind of what we decided to do too, and gives people a little bit of a perk just for referring people, so they'll get 1% of whatever they deposit their first time, and that's it, and you get a little perk out of it. So, and you know, who's going to make a, this is not a money making thing to make a living off of. It's just that the members wanted a little bit of help, saying, hey, how can we work to cover our own fees on our own business? Well, we could probably afford to pay each other a little reward, so that's what we did.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. Okay, I got to ask you about one other thing, because Patrick told me you guys do gold infused, like paper.
Say that again.
Patrick told me you do something like gold infused, like paper money or something to that effect.
Oh yeah. Okay, I haven't even. We've got a lot. We're gonna have to do part 2, I think.
Yeah,
but
probably
here's
so.
the deal. There's a new technology that came out, and that was the ability to take and make gold flexible. Did you know that? I didn't know this till this came out. I mean, I'm not on that committee, so I'm not always on the fun, interesting new, stuff that comes out. We're not just sitting back like cowboy days with a big old clunky key on the front gate of some stupid vault. We're high tech. I mean, we really are. So what we've done is we took this gold that can be layered on vellum or plastic, and we had a artist do a kind of like what engravers do, is do a picture. How you got George Washington and Abe Lincoln and Jackson and all those guys, and all the artwork on these Federal Reserve notes. Well, we did the same thing, but it was with a company that's independent of UPMA called Goldbacks, and there's a one goldback, numeral 1 means one goldback. Okay, just one goldback, and then it's a 1. It says 1, and then on it, and then it doesn't say dollar. It says one goldback, and then there's a 5, and in weight, the 5 weighs 5 times as much in gold as the 1. Then we have we go all the way up to 50. Now the 20 isn't there. We have a 25. So the 25 weighs 25 times as much in gold as the 1, and it's flexible. You can put it in your billfold, okay? And they're called goldbacks. Well, we're, as members, we decided to allow those to be deposited and vaulted for free at UPMA. So you can get these. Now, okay, now get this. UPMA is in Utah. That's why it started off as Utah Precious Metals. Now it's United Precious Metals. But that's where the first gold and silver legal tender act, like Missouri's getting ready to pass, started. And so these people that said, well, let's just give each other gold and silver. Well, the goal was to make a $1 silver dollar shaped thing you can put in your billfold worth 1/10 of an ounce of silver. So we wanted, if you're going to get above a silver dollar, you might as well just get silver dollars. But we wanted to go below that and make it more divided up into smaller amounts. So like right now, one goldback's approximately, $3.50 or 40 cents. Okay. So it's, about that much. So it's 1/10. Now, what can you do with it? We've issued millions of these, and they're in circulation in Utah. People are going all over the place spending them directly. Now get this. Idaho liked the idea, and they said, can we have them too? And so there's an Idaho goldback. Now there's a Nevada goldback. There's a New Hampshire goldback, a Maine goldback, and we just miffed off that lady up there in Wyoming that everybody hates. You know that lady? Cheney. Mm-hmm. Anyway, she got miffed because Wyoming just issued their goldbacks. Now they're all the same weight for each one. So all the ones weigh the same, and they've got reciprocity. So all those states cannot issue national currencies. They can cut deals with other states to trade. So a one gold back, a Utah gold back that's a number one or a five can be traded, let's say five. A five gold back can be traded for a five gold back in Idaho because they weigh the same. And so now we have reciprocity between states. When Missouri passes it, I'm already keyed up to go and approach them for goldbacks to see if they want them for Missouri. Now, guess what? I've already talked to the newly elected treasurer of Arkansas, and I've got him the template signed, ready to sign and seal and, do his department's work on just one piece of paper because Arkansas only requires the treasurer to enact it. He just has to stamp and by edict to issue it, and gold and silver by legal tender will start. And there's a possibility that for every gold back issued, the state gets paid 1%, just like we were doing for each member in UPMA. So it's not like they're going in debt either. It's like it makes money for the state, and it helps everybody.
I
love them.
This is so cool.
I put them in. Hey, I'll tell you what. I put a tip out on the table, and I'll put one of the go backs out, and I'll put like a $5 bill out. Now I'm only talking a small meal here, okay? But I'll put a $3.50 in U.S. dollar, fiat dollars worth of go back out there, one, and a five. And you know what? Guess which one the waitress or the waiter will take?
Mm-hmm. That's going after that gold back, baby.
Yeah, it's beautiful. They'll pick it up and they'll say thanks. They couldn't believe it. They'll go, "What is this? What is this?" And I go to meetings. We go to prepper meetings, and there's this lady, and she wants me to pay her in gold backs, and she's giving them to her kids. And I mean, it's exploding, John. It's exploding. It's back. We're getting our wealth back. We're getting our country back by being honest with each other. Because when you give somebody a gold coin or a silver coin, that there's no debt still that says note that somebody's owed somebody, it's paid off. It's forever paid off.
Yeah, I don't know. This is just so freaking cool. I mean, here in a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and end the show because if not, we'll be on here for 3.5 hours, and then people are, you know what? I love going that long, but unfortunately, most people can't sit and listen to 3 hours of talk, and I have to learn at some point. But this is now. I will tell you this, Charles. Several months, I think it might have been late last year, a good friend of mine who runs a small radio network here in Owensville, he actually went to a city council meeting and told them, because of what was happening during COVID and things they were talking about introducing, he said, we may want to look at a secondary economy. And he was enlightening people on the goldbacks and things like that it was another way for local businesses to have transactions with customers if they didn't want to use fiat currency. So he was trying to get people and encourage people here to look at a secondary type of economy if things ever really, really, really got bad. And he was talking about the goldback thing. And then Patrick told me about it. Now you're telling me about it, and it's like, this is really, really exciting. Really cool stuff. I'm really happy that Patrick got us together and you agreed to come on, because I'm learning so damn much. It's kind of mind-blowing. I have a feeling when I get off here I'm going to have to decompress, because you loaded my mind with so much information. But I needed it. I needed to know more, and some members of my audience are going to learn from this, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm trying to think. Okay, let's go into this for a minute. Allodial titles. Gold and silver have allodial title with them. And Federal Reserve notes don't. Go into that. I want people to understand this too.
Well, I grew up on a farm that was founded. It was bought, I should say, before the Missouri became a state, and of course I wasn't born then, but that my ancestors bought it, and then about 1855, they had at that point in time, I don't know when before then when they built it, but I think it was built pretty quick when they got it. But they bought it before the state, and still in '55 there was under construction a farmhouse because they were living in a cabin, and the farmhouse was finished after the Civil War, and that's the one I was telling you about that was over 10 rooms. I mean, I grew up in a house with 10-foot ceilings or 9.5, and more than 10 rooms. Well, there's one more thing about it. The property had a allodial title. A allodial title means you don't pay taxes. You are actually owning it. You don't lose it because you don't pay the tax. How can you own something if you can lose it for $500 in taxes or $1 in taxes? Because you don't own it. Now, allodial means you own it. Silver and gold does not say note. When it says note, John, which it does on every piece of paper from the Federal Reserve, it means somebody owes something. Well, guess who's owed the money? The person holding the note. You and I hold their note. They actually owe us. Do you think the Federal Reserve is ever going to pay us off?
I sure. I mean, I could totally see the Feds paying us money. I mean, who would ever doubt that the Federal Reserve would pay us what they owe us? I mean, come on, Charles.
So anyway, allodial means that because we're dealing in real asset, a real, like dirt, you own it. That's why when you hand it to somebody, you've actually paid the debt off. And when you hand them a Betty Crocker coupon, even a Betty Crocker coupon actually, John, has more value because you get enough Betty Crocker coupons, you can get you a set of silver. I don't know if you remember those days, but off the cereal boxes, you could rip off a Betty Crocker coupon, and you could get a whole bunch of them and give Mom a present, a year later with something from Betty Crocker, and she'd be all surprised because you were ripping off the good housekeeping things, and sending them in. Betty Crocker stuff, So, but see, you didn't have to owe them more back than they sent out. The Fed's it's a crime. It's been a crime ever since it got started. There was even that book, like I said, it was said, The Law That Never Was by Benson, Benson. Good luck trying to find it. You can take that book and walk into court and slam it down on the courthouse, and the judges go, oh no, because it's all record. It's from the records of every state, authorized records, signed by the state, saying what was passed or not passed, and it wasn't ever passed. So we've been stolen from, even if we did authorize it, but we didn't. But they think we have, so we'll just play with that. But we don't have to play with them if we don't want to. Let's pretend like, John, you could live because you're a breatharian. You don't have to eat food. You don't need water. And you pretty much don't even need a house because temperatures don't build. What are they going to try and do to you then? I mean, what can they do? Will they try and probably try and make you pay for air. The reason they do this is because they want to control us. It's not their country. A lot of people, when I ask people what are the three branches of our country, they always do those three. Did you know that's not correct? The government is the people, and these people aren't government. we keep calling them government. We need to start telling them, everybody, when we get on the air and talk about this, that we're talking about civic servants and civil servants. Maybe they're a civic leader, but they are not the government. We are the government. We tell them what to do. And in fact, we're supposed to be able to fire them, but they cheat, don't they? And they rig the elections because they want to stay in office, just like the lady that's running the elections in Arizona. The Secretary of State runs them there. And she warned the people that if they didn't pass the bill or and certify the votes to make her the governor, because she was running for governor, that she was going to arrest them. How about that? We've got civil servants that can say, if you don't get me certified to be governor, I'm going to arrest you because I'm running for governor. What kind of system is that? Well, it's an out of control off the reservation, and we, the people, need to take it back. And here's one of the ways, one of the key ways, one of the most powerful ways is, well, look at, I'll say this at the very end here. Ron Paul tried for 30 years, and he was even on the banking committee in the House, and he got passed an audit bill. We're still waiting for that audit to happen. And he tried to end the Fed like Andrew Jackson, and it didn't happen. So why are we trying to kill Goliath when we don't even have a stone? Let's just build track 2 and go around the Fed. That's what we're doing.
That's pretty awesome. Hey, I got to tell you a story when you talk about the Civil War aged house. So years ago, again, doing pest control work, I got sent to an old farmhouse to treat it for termites. And I mean, I knew the house was old. I could tell by the stonework on the outside and everything, and by the wood floors. I mean, I knew this house was 100+ years old very easily. Well, then the gentleman that I guess he kind of owned the land, he showed up as I was getting ready to clean up and leave, and we talked for a little bit. And he brought this tool out. Now, on one end, it kind of had a hooked end, and then on the other end, it just kind of had this, it kind of widened out, but had like this beveled edge to it. And he said, "Do you know what this is?" And I said, "No, I have no idea." He said, "You see the stones on the outside of this house?" I said, "Yep." He goes, "Now you see that bluff way down the hill over there?" I said, "Yep." He goes, "My grandfather who built this, he said he took this tool and he cut every stone for this house out of that bluff down the holler there, and then brought them all the way up here, and it was a 2-story house, and laid them all up."
Oh my!
And he wanted to put a certain type of cut edge to the stones, but his friend said, if you do that, it'll take us another 2 years to finish the house. So they went with what they had. Now, it's phenomenal because when you look at it, unless you get up close and inspect every stone, the symmetry of each stone was astounding. What they did by sitting there and taking a hammer and a couple of these tools and cutting the rock out of the bluff is amazing. So that house was built in 1860. I think it got done in 1865 or 1866, so right towards the end of the Civil War, right after. They finished the house. Just astounding. And, I mean, besides the floors being a little squishy, very solid house. I mean, that house isn't going anywhere. It was just amazing, you know, because we're used to, you know, bricks coming in. If you build a brick house, they just show up on pallets, and you get your bricklayers there. But these two guys just going down there and literally hand cutting out every stone for a 2-story house, and I'm thinking, oh, that blew my mind. But it gave me an even greater appreciation for what people in those days had to do to build a house. You didn't have trucks and all this stuff.
It's incredible. It's incredible, isn't it? I had the fortune. I know this is going to sound crazy, but when I was a young boy and my parents actually got the opportunity to take the family home over, basically he bought it, but he took it over. and I moved there as a young boy, we still had a well pump out on the concrete by hand. We had a cellar, and we had outhouses down by the barn. And it's incredible, all the equipment that was still there, the rakes that pull hay behind a horse that my dad then hooked up to a little bitty Cub Cadet tractor, and I got on it, sat in this thing, and pushed levers to rake the hay in the field. I mean, it's incredible that it's so you get so attached. You begin to realize your connection to the land. Now, let me kind of finish by saying this, John. And if we're getting close, I want to make sure I get this in.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, the founding fathers, when we had this country and started this country, land was really important. They had a law. It was a law that you had to be a landowner to vote.
Mm-hmm.
You know that, right?
Yes, I do.
Why do people get so upset by thinking, oh, that just gives the rich people an opportunity and nobody else? No, that's not it, John. Here's why. God's law is Christian law was the code or the moral basis for the Constitution. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
The Constitution is called what? The law of the what?
The land.
Land. It's not admiralty. Admiralty is out on the water. Admiralty is wishy-washy. It can change. There can be tides and up and down and change. Land is sturdy, steady, basically. I mean, there might be an earthquake in the wrong place. But it was law of the land. God was reflecting his sovereignty in man by making sure through our Constitution that we had liberty by going to the land. And so if you wanted to be free, before you had to be a baron. Remember how they used to be barons and they told all the peasants what to do because they owned the land? Well, here in America, we got rid of nobility. Anybody could own land, and that set man free. So it's the law of the land. It's the Constitution. It's because you are a landowner. It's the roots of your liberty and freedom in America. The land, and everybody can have some. Okay? Everybody. In other words, there is nobody prohibited from buying land. I'm not talking about equal rights means equal things. Equal rights under the law meant every man could own land, and land represented freedom and liberty. And that's why it was in the Constitution.
Also, I know it's been laid out before, too, that if you if you had a bunch of renters or something like that, it also offered the opportunity for people who didn't own anything, some of them just didn't want to own anything, some of them wanted to rent, or some of them were basically parasites. It allowed the parasites to vote themselves more free stuff. They kind of understood that too. If you were a landowner, you know, there's a responsibility in that. And so you're going to vote, more than likely, the more responsible way. But if you allow people to vote themselves more stuff without understanding the burden that they're putting on themselves and everybody else, well, they're just going to keep voting themselves free stuff. That's just an inherently cyclical, stupid thing that we go through all the time because people don't understand basic economics. It says they think the money's just free, but yet they don't. It's not clicking that every few years, because of inflation and all the money printing and all this awful fiat currency, they have to turn around and vote themselves more quote-unquote free stuff because what they've done to the economy and what the governments and the feds have done with the currency. And it just doesn't click because it's just too easy to grovel at the feet of a politician for more free stuff. The founders also understood that.
you brought up a perfect example of this person entitled to land, or let's put it this way: let's give that entitled parasite 500 acres, and let's give a guy that knows what the value of land is that's going to work at 20 acres. The guy with 20 acres is probably going to be able to feed himself, put stuff in the cellar. He's going to be productive and so forth. He might build him a cabin. He's got maybe some land. If he doesn't have any trees, he'll trade for logs, and he'll get heat and cut the wood. But if the guy's entitled and he's sitting on top of 500 acres, guess what? If he just sits there, guess what's going to happen? He's going to starve to death. He's going to freeze to death. It don't make any difference that he owned the land. Like you said, you have to be responsible for yourself. And you've got land to do it. But if you don't do it, don't expect anybody to feed you.
Yeah, I mean, again, and that just leads into other things, because some people couldn't because they had a disability or they had some nagging thing, an issue.
Of course.
So, but
Yes.
at that time, the churches and the people stepped in to help those out. Now it's, there's a government program for that. Just go to some government building and get your hand
we've
out.
We've taken a moral code that we were living by and have pushed it off and not and say, it's the government's responsibility. No, it was the bodies, the ministries of the churches in caring for people. Hey, what happened to the 70-year-old widow that needs help? Well, they go to the pastors today, and the first thing they ask the lady is, well, did you file at the state for any help? I know a church in Kansas City, Missouri, that built a 10-story facility for people that needed a place to retire, and they did it as a ministry and gave them a free apartment.
Yeah. I mean, and people act like that's weird now. That's weird. But here, and I'll give you another example. Now, this is a little different. But in Forest Park, which is in St. Louis, okay, the people of that area and the businesses all came together and put money together to beautify the area. But you know what they did differently? They put in the work themselves, and they will readily admit that they did it better and cheaper than if they would have just handed the money to the Parks Department and said, hey, go beautify Forest Park. It turned out way better than the government agency would have done it. And when you talk about St. Louis, you're like, wow, they actually did that in St. Louis. But yes, they did. They beautified it, and they worked on it themselves, and it was cheaper and done better because the people used their money to ensure their money was spent well, the right way, and the most effectively. They got involved personally in the projects. And that's, that's a perfect example of society coming together and doing something without kowtowing to some bureaucrat and begging for them to steal more of your money to do it for you. You do it yourself. It's the same way with you're being generous towards others and helping each other out instead of saying, well, just go down to the this whatever building and sign up, and then you can wait 6 months and starve to death, or people can come together and just buy you food. And it's
You're
immediate.
Be
it's
excited
immediate.
about this, John. This is a very exciting topic, and because it's going to branch into a lot of things, and you're touching on it. And one of the things that's made it possible is because of having a money system like this. Guess what we're in the process of doing? We're in the process of actually starting a medical system that doesn't report to the AMA or Big Pharma, and doesn't have insurance company dictating what they do, because we're using real money to do it. It's a cash-based medical system. Now, these aren't dodo birds. We're talking about people that have been schooled and went to, I taught the honors program up in Michigan for nursing and pre-med. And there were absolutely brilliant minds there. I mean, I had people that could memorize the anatomy book the first day, read every page, memorize it right then. Now that's not me. I had to work really hard, but I taught these people. And what's going on? We're on the verge, John, of a real and honest medical system that's cash-based and affordable. For example, an MRI unit might cost anywhere from $1,500 to $1,800, but that's because of insurance costs. If you go on a cash-based system, you can get an MRI done for yourself for about $400. Because it's reachable, we're going to be able to get things without dictates of the control of the insurance saying, oh, no, we can't do that, or the AMA or Big Pharma saying, oh, no, ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine don't work. And I'm just going to tell you right now, John, in early 2020, I testified. Well, I actually briefed Congress. I got a call and I briefed Congressman Crawford on the House Intelligence Committee or the House Select Committee on Intelligence about COVID. And about, 3 days ago, can't remember, this week, I got a call from Washington, D.C., got a call from his office, and they said, we want your help. Tell us about COVID. John, I let him have it. I'll just tell you what I said, because it's going to come out, okay? Fauci, as I call him. You can call him Fauci if you want. Needs to be criminally prosecuted for genocide, for the death of millions of people. And here's why. Gain-of-function research. I had known about the gain-of-function research going on because I had colleagues that were teaching the medical doctors in China, and I knew of a man that was in the deep web, not the dark criminal web, but the deep web, getting information about gain of function. And I've got some other people too, delegates to the RNC whose relatives were paid by Bill Gates to do research. It's there. Rand Paul's all over it. He said Fauci did gain of function research. So we've got a new medical system. The old system was broke and it was getting broker. They're still going to try and use medical emergencies. And I told them this time, John, if they try and use a blue mask as an excuse to get us locked down, that it isn't going to work. They're going to have a revolution. And I said, why, if that blue mask is so good, does our chemical, biological, and nuclear teams in the military not go out there with this blue mask? Because it would be a lot cheaper, and aren't we supposed to do the cheapest thing we can get by with? They get up, suited up. They look like a spacesuit. Then they go into these labs and work at level 4. And I know what I'm talking about. They knew what I was, and why they called me was because I stopped an epidemic they couldn't get stopped in Oklahoma of West Nile. And they didn't know what to do. I've been trained by Army Medical Command in biological warfare, and I thought they were idiots. I'll just tell you the truth. Bottom line, John, is we've got a new medical system. We're almost ready to launch in what I call into the golden medical system that we've always wanted. And it's just at the doorstep. It's going to happen. In fact, when I taught my classes, I said we used to do alchemy. Now we've gone to chemistry, and we've gone as far as we can. Now you guys are going to be into quantum medicine. I didn't mean chips. I didn't mean mRNA. I meant quantum, actual healing at a level we can't even, like the tricorder on Star Trek, helping us get well. It's on the verge of being a wonderful new era. We've just got to push hard and fight to get it. That's all we're going to be doing it through what's called PMAs, Private Membership Associations for Healthcare. It's going to be wonderful, John.
Okay, well, on that note, because I got to finish up here pretty shortly, as soon as you're ready to launch or you do whatever, you give me a call, because I want you right back here on the show. In fact, I have a feeling you're going to have to come back for several episodes, because we have a lot to get through. And my guests are really, really astounded by the things that they've heard tonight, and they're very you've got them wrapped, man, and that's great. I love it. But as soon as that launches, I want to know, because I want people in this local area and any other area where I get coverage. I want people to know about this because I know Dr. McCullough is in something as well where there's no insurance. The co-pays for a televisit or whatever are really, I think 2 people can get a visit for, I don't know, it's $50 or $60. And and then the they're doing nutraceuticals instead of pharmaceuticals and all these things. And I'm like, great, because he got screwed over, and because they pulled some of his things away from him, he's like, all right, screw you. I'll just go with these people, and we'll start the same thing. What you're doing, a revolution in healthcare. And again,
well, John, we've got to talk about that and other things like the militia. We got to let them have their honor back. The honor of the militia was slimed and trampled on starting in the 90s. You know, we got to get back on track. And of course, along with this bill for gold and silver for Missouri, is the bill they passed to make the Missouri Guard, not the National Guard, but make it the Missouri Guard that can only protect the constitutional rights of the Missouri people. And I'm just going to tell you, John, I'm going to throw one in at you that I hope doesn't make everybody hang up. I'm the retired state commander of the militia in Missouri.
Now, nobody's going to like dump. Listen, if they dump the show over that, then I don't know why they've been listening in the first place. And I want to hit on something that you just said, because after the bombing of the MERS building in Oklahoma, I distinctly now at that age, I wasn't into politics. I just remember it, repeating on the news ad nauseum. But I do remember one thing. For whatever reason, this stuck with me. President Clinton being up in front and absolutely trash-talking militias. Now, that didn't even faze me at that time. But when I had my, I guess you call, freedom awakening, my freedom awakening was watching the documentary America, Freedom to Fascism from Aaron Russo. That was my awakening moment.
Awesome.
And
that's a good one.
Yeah, everything after that, I just read and watched documentaries. I mean, I was just on a constant information intake. But when I heard on a local station here, they played audio from a documentary on that whole thing. And it instantly brought back, now I can't remember the words he said, but I remember the tone that he was setting on militias. And it just, again, it didn't register. And then I thought, oh, wow, that was in the 90s. And that just instantly came back. It's just like that memory and one other that I have are so profound to me. When I was in high school, I had the same teacher for Spanish and psychology classes. She stood up in front of the class one day and she said, we talk about having a drug problem in this country. She's like, if you turn on the television, now this is 1990, 1991, she's stating this. She's like, you watch television, and every other ad is, you got this, pop a pill. You got this, take a pill. You got this, take a pill. And she goes, we wonder why we have a drug problem in this country. Now, at that time, I hated school. I just wanted to pass and graduate and get out of there. But that message stuck with me. Years later, when I started reading up on the drug war, read Gary Webb's Dark Alliance, that message came back, and I was like, oh my God, she was so right. And when I fortunately somehow, she was a client of the pest control company that I worked, and I sprayed her house a couple times, and I think the first or second time I saw her, I said, hey, I got to tell you, you said something to me in like 1990 that is still with me today. And she just kind of chuckled, but it did, I didn't care at the time. And now that I'm older and I'm wiser and I've had this awakening, I'm like, holy crap, this is so good. Well, Charles, you, sir, have been such a wealth of information. So I want to extend to you an invitation here. Maybe sometime next month, depending on how I'm booked for guests, if you would be willing to come on next month, we can continue our talk on
Let's do that, John. I'd love to do this. I feel like I'm, so to speak, coming home around a big turn, speaking to folks in Missouri, and I know what's coming, John. I know what's coming. I know communists. I've been hauled off by the communists. I got hauled off by the East European military many years ago when I was smuggling Bibles into Romania, and I got hidden by the underground church. And John, I got to tell you, I knew then, a few years after I got back into this country, God laid on my heart, and he said, basically, not in any kind of mode or words out loud or anything, I just knew that what I had experienced was coming to America, and sure enough, here it is, John.
You know, you talk about that, Charles, and I want to tell you, I used to do a different podcast called The Push for Liberty, and I was covering a lot of federal and, just national events, and I would cover a little bit of stuff in Missouri. I was covering everything national, international. And on an experimental basis, I just decided to look up bills that were coming through Missouri. I had a few reps on to talk about their bills, just short 10, 15-minute conversations. And I decided to make a switch to just Missouri only. And that was it. And then this whole thing is blown up. I met Patrick from the Missouri Freedom Initiative by accident on Twitter. I say accident, but sometimes it feels like divine intervention. I don't know how else to explain it. But after meeting Patrick, just this podcast is blowing up. And then I'm getting to speak with people like you. I'm seeing the good works that people can do if they put forth the effort and go to the Capitol and talk to their reps and talk to their senators to push good, legislation and try to kill the bad stuff. And we did that last session. It's been very humbling, but yet it's been the most gratifying and satisfying thing that I've done in a long time, because I feel like, for a change, not only am I doing something that serves my own self-interest and my sovereignty, I'm also affecting everyone else's sovereignty and self-interest in preserving liberty, and it feels as if I'm actually fulfilling my moral obligation.
You're in the war.
Yeah.
Well, you're in the war, John. You're in the war because you're doing the right thing, and this is where the fight is right now. It's fifth generational war. What's fifth generational? What we're doing right now is fifth generational warfare. This is hopefully what all we have to do to avoid it going kinetic. And that's what we call it. And China knows that's why they do their fifth generational warfare. Well, we're going to bang back on them. And it's been a pleasure meeting you, John, and being able to be on your show. So,
yeah, great.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, greatly appreciate you coming on. This has been an amazing, again, wealth of information. So I will be in touch with you probably towards the end of this month. I want to try to get you booked sometime in January to carry on our conversation. I've got Tom Martz, who's in the live stream. I got to get him back on next month. He's our Missouri state constitution expert. The guy just literally knows the state constitution like the back of his hand. I got to get him back on. Patrick's once a month. And I have some other sporadic guests, but yeah, I want to have you back on a few more times at least, so we can delve into some other topics that we didn't get to tonight. But again, so awesome to speak to you tonight, Charles. I greatly appreciate all the time you've given me. And I will put a link to the UPMA.org. I will put a link to that site. We've already got people on the live stream saying they've gone and signed up for an account. So you've done the good deed tonight, sir. It's been great. But
let me get you a referral code, and then you can take mine, sign up, and then when you have people that want to sign up, you can give them your referral code, and we'll all benefit just a little bit, just a little bit. It'll all be kind of fun. It'll be fun. We'll be supporting each other a little bit. It all helps. You know?
Absolutely.
Let's do this. I'm real excited about it because I'm just south of the border in Arkansas, and I'll be so glad to get back home to my home state.
Yeah, and we'll be glad to have you back.
By the way.
Yeah, we'll be glad to have somebody, a fighter like you, back in the state of Missouri, helping things out. Well, Charles, man, you have yourself a great weekend. Such a pleasure to speak with you, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Thank you, John. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been my privilege.
All right, take care.
Thank you very much.
All right, folks, that was Charles. Holy crap. That was, Patrick was not lying. That guy is a wealth of information. That was utterly mind-blowing. I had such a great time. And that could have been a, that could have been a 3-hour episode. I mean, no questions asked. That could have been 3 hours worth. But I know that a lot of people aren't going to hang on for that long. Heck, we basically did 2 hours. But hey, I'm so glad that you all got the enjoyment out of that. I hope my other audiences get a lot of information out of this. I hope a lot of people start, sending some money and getting into the gold and silver thing. And everybody in here, say thank you to Patrick, because Patrick lined this up. This was not my doing. Patrick's like, hey, I got a guy you can interview, because it was just going to be me tonight, and that would have been boring for all of you. So, thanks to Patrick. Patrick Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative lined us all up. So, this coming Sunday, the 11th, at 2 o'clock, at First State Community Bank here in Owensville. It's located at 308 West Lincoln Avenue, down in the basement. If you guys show up, you're going to want to come in the back door. And as you come in the back door, you're going to go through the glass doors. There'll be a door on your left that'll lead you to the basement. That's where the meeting's going to be, 2 o'clock. I know for sure that Ben Brown's going to be there. Bruce Sassman. So Ben Brown, our local state senator, is going to be there. Bruce Sassman, our state rep's going to be there. I sent another notification to Bill Eigel. I have not heard anything. I've invited Bill Eigel to show up. But Patrick's going to be there. Tom Martz, I believe, is going to be there. And we're going to have Sam and Trish from MOLibertyRadio.us there. John Grady, our sponsor from Slap Happy Beverage, he's going to be there. We're going to have all kinds of patriots there. Now, if you don't mind, folks, go to GasconadeCountyRepublican.com, GasconadeCountyRepublican.com, and look up. Let me see if I can find a link real quick, because this I submitted a letter to the editor last week, and I guess I didn't get it in time to get it into is this him calling back? Let's see. I turned my Bluetooth off. Crap. But I sent a letter to the editor about what went down with the vaccine freedom or parents' choice bill, Susie Pollock's bill. And so they posted it in this week's paper. And here's the link right here. And I think it's hilarious because, that hit the paper, and I call out Bruce Sassman by name. And then then we have the meeting this Sunday. But anyway, it should be great. We're going to have a lot of great people here at this meeting. And this is really what I'm trying to do, is get more local people involved. And what some of you fine folks in the Missouri Freedom Initiative do, and getting people to get back and get their state back and be involved, to be active. That's the agenda. Maybe we can find a superstar to join us at the Capitol when we make our visits to push for, push for more freedom in the state of Missouri. But anyway, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. Again, next week will be Michelle Latham, and we're going to dive deep into the WEF and their workings in the state of Missouri and her fight to remove them from the state of Missouri. So that should be interesting. But anyway, folks, it was great seeing you all. Appreciate all the comments. I'm sorry I was bad. I was so entrenched in what Charles was saying. I wasn't paying attention to the live chat and asking many questions. But definitely he's going to be coming back for multiple visits to talk along with Patrick. I got to get Tom Martz on here more often so he can speak as well. It's going to be awesome. But anyway, folks, thanks. We'll see you next week right here on the Missouri Liberty Report.
Want more freedom? It starts with you. Join us next week on the Missouri Liberty Report and find out how you can get involved to take back your state.
Hey, thanks everybody. That was so freaking cool. That was, well, let's just say it bluntly. That was super badass. Okay? That was just super badass. Okay? I'm off the air now. I can say whatever I want. I won't get the radio stations in trouble. That was fucking amazing. Holy Toledo. Patrick's like, this guy can just fill in a lot of space by talking and all these things. And he just, holy crap. I was like, oh, okay. And then he just started talking. I'm like, holy crap. This guy knows his stuff. So, yeah, great stuff. So, anyway, folks, again, thank you so much for the support and everything. I really appreciate it. And, again, Michelle Latham next week. But, again, December the 11th, right here in Owensville. We're going to be here talking freedom, how you can get involved in the state and get our freedom back and keep more of that money that we go out and work for. So thanks, everybody.